what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from Street Scores, bringing y'all that Air Coryell Offense video part 2. I'm so happy I finally have it done. Been a lot of work. This was definitely more complicated than the defense. I thought the defense was going to be more complicated. No. But I'm finally done, finally got it out the way, and after this, we're moving straight to film sessions for the rookie class and the undrafted free agents. So it's time to get busy. And before we start, y'all already know, man, make sure y'all go and buy the best Burgundy and Gold merch money can buy. Go to the link in the description under this video under Go Get Street Scores merch. Also, to become a channel member, the best sports YouTube channel out here doing it, go hit the link in the description under Become a Channel Member. And there's 4 different levels, all with their own exclusive perks. So go be a part of the exclusive Street Scores family. Also, every Thursday, 7 to 8 p.m., join Rant with Rico. Phone number in the description where you call in, you voice your opinions, you ask your questions, your voice is heard. And every Friday night, 8 to 10 p.m., make sure y'all pull up to me and Shay's show broadcast where we talk about everything this week, as in this Friday, as in July 21st. Shay won't be here, so it will be my 2 cousins and me, and we're going to talk about basketball, anime, gaming, music, all of that. And then, of course, y'all already know, pull up every Sunday, 2 to 4 p.m., for the Street Scores Full Access show where I reply to every comment in the live chat. And y'all already know that when we get to the regular season, that show is just going to transition to the Sunday live stream games where we just watch the game together. But without further ado, let's get it. Now, first of all, the things we will see a lot of are shifts in motions, strange and unique formations we've never seen before, and disguising intentions. And we'll talk about all 3 of these themes all throughout this video. These 3 themes are the soul of this offense, and you will hear them brought up many times throughout this video. And before we dive deep into specific X's and O's and plays and illustrations while I'm showing y'all what's going on and what's the thinking behind it, I want to discuss a few things that we can understand about this offense and the philosophies behind it. First up, he's willing to adjust. Even though the Air Coryell prides itself on being very aggressive and throwing the deep ball, Scott Turner is willing to take what the defense is giving him and take the shorter underneath route. He said, quote, "It's just don't get bored and take what the defense gives you." Like if the defense is playing press man, then of course Turner will take shots down the field like he wants to. But if they are playing cover 2, there are still ways to scheme up some deep throws, but he is willing to throw the checkdowns and underneath routes. And Haskins specifically, if Haskins is having an all first half, Scott Turner is willing to change up the game plan for a short time and scheme up some short throws that can get Haskins back into rhythm while taking what the defense gives him and immediately get back to being aggressive and throw the deep passes as soon as the defense begins to get aggressive and starts to play up a little bit. Number 2, he understands football is a chess match and doesn't overthink things. You can't think they played cover 2 that last time and this time they're going to play man for sure and I'm going to get that big play. Just take every single play as it comes, read our keys, and I think that's really the message that I'm trying to say. It's not that I want them to take the safe way, I just want them to take the correct way. Number 3, everything is practiced equally. Even the strange plays. So the plays where he had Christian McCaffrey, Curtis Samuel, and DJ Moore doing things that only very versatile athletic players could do, like exotic screens and routes and sweeps, or even having the running back running routes and receivers getting the ball in the backfield. Turner emphasizes and practices those plays just as much as the normal, typical plays you see most offenses running. He said, quote, "Make those plays part of your core offense, and when you practice them, you put as much emphasis on them as other plays." Turner believes every play counts equally, so quote, "We rep those plays in training camp, and we rep them in practice during the week leading up to the game. We don't ever try to trick something. It's something we saw based on the way they play or something in a scheme, and we count on those things to gain yards," unquote. Number 4, he goes into games with a preconceived notion about run-pass split. He said he always wants to be balanced on first and second down. He acknowledged that, of course, third downs will be more pass-heavy unless you're having a great game and are consistently in third and short situations, but overall, he wants to be very balanced. He said, quote, "We want to be able to do both. I think you have to be able to do both. You're going to end up being pass heavy because if you're bounced on first, second down, and then you pass out of it on third, you're going to end up being very pass heavy. And I think that is the most successful way. it's been pretty proven over time that you throw the ball to get the lead. In an ideal game where you kind of have control of the game, I think you like to be pass heavy in the first half, gain a lead, and then run heavy in the second half to put the team away, but you have to be able to do both, unquote. So expect us to be far more pass heavy than we are used to seeing from this team this past year, when we would basically run on first down, run on second down, and then pass on third and long over and over and over again. Now, we'll be passing the ball a lot on first downs to set the tone and force defenses to be stressed and on their toes from the jump on possessions. And just to prove he isn't saying empty words, in his 4-game stint as the Panthers offensive coordinator, out of 122 first down plays, he passed on 83 of them, 68%. And they were in shotgun on 85 of those 122 first down plays, which is great for Haskins because he loved shotgun in college. And once Kevin O'Connell took over the offense towards the end of last season and we started running a lot of shotgun and no huddle offense, Haskins started to get into a rhythm and started to ball out. Like that Giants game when he was 12 of 15 on passes with 133 yards and 2 touchdowns before he got hurt. So in conclusion, expect us to be very aggressive and creative on first downs. The opposite of what we were under Jake Gruden and especially Bill Callahan. Number 5. And even beyond first downs, expect us to be way more pass happy in general. Over the course of the Panthers' 16 games last year, including the 12 Norv Turner was the offensive coordinator, they passed the ball 64.2% of the time, which was 4th most in the league. And in Scott Turner's 4 games specifically, it was even higher at 66.3%. CMC never had a 100-yard rushing game under Scott Turner, but he still dominated games with how much Scott Turner used him in the passing game. He had 41 catches in those 4 games, which is insane for any receiver, let alone a running back. Over 10 catches a game while being the leading receiver on the team by far in that 4-game span, along with running the ball, very high usage rate, and I'm sure CMC loved all of it. And I'm sure Bryce Love, Antonio Gibson, and J.D. McKissic will also love it. Number 6, in random news, Turner said he carries hundreds of plays on his call card every game, and he adds and deletes plays according to the opposing defenses. The call card is never the exact same from game to game. And it's weird because there's so many plays as a result of having different concepts within the same protection and different runs from the same and different formation. Luckily for us, when something is working, like a specific run play and design, Turner loves to abuse it, of course, but what's great about Turner is that we will run the same play from different looks and formations so he can continue the same attack, but the defense won't be ready for it. And I'm going to break down some examples of this with visuals later on in this video. And also, there are so many plays, hundreds of them, because he has a lot of situational plays like no huddle sequences, 2-minute offenses, playing behind by 20, for example, or playing up by 20, for example, an injury to a major part of the offense in the offensive game plan. I mean, every situation possible is accounted for within those hundreds of plays walking into each game. Number 7, last year the Panthers had played with 4 different left tackles, 2 of them being rookies. So if there's anybody that knows how to structure and adapt an offense around uncertainty at the left tackle position, it's Scott Turner. That's something very random, but may prove to be some very useful experience for us throughout this season until Sadiq Charles is ready to be that Pro Bowl level left tackle that I think he will be, which will not be a thing early on in my opinion, but I do expect it to happen at some point. And until then, if there is an offensive coordinator in the NFL that can design an offense around uncertainty at the left side of the offensive line, it's Scott Turner. Very random, but can prove to be very big for us. Number 8. Turner comes from a coaching tree that divided offensive game plan responsibilities amongst the many offensive coaches. So like the running backs coach focused on RPOs, the offensive line coach focused on run game and protections, of course, the quarterback coach focused on third downs, the receivers coach had red zone game planning responsibilities, and the tight ends coach had goal line and short yardage situation responsibilities. And then they will all present their individual game plans and collaborate on compiling an overall game plan for that specific week. Scott Turner may bring a very similar system here, and since he's the offensive coordinator, he will lead and facilitate these weekly strategy and game plan initiatives, and he will have the final say-so on everything, of course. And what I like about this is that it gets multiple people, opinions, and viewpoints involved in the creation of each week's game plan. It also makes everybody take ownership and accountability and pride in their respective areas of expertise. And when we are lacking in a particular way, say third down specifically, we can point out the exact person that needs to step it up. Again, if we are performing poorly on third down specifically, then we know exactly who needs to work with Scott Turner on figuring out how to do a better job with their strategy and research in the days leading up to the game. Number 9, pass blocking wise, Turner likes to use both solid and slide schemes for his line. A slide scheme is when an offensive line slides one way or the other and blocks whatever defender works into their gap responsibilities. And a solid scheme is where offensive linemen block man-to-man and are assigned a defender to block pre-snap. And any given play can ask for the offensive line to do a combination of both. Like maybe 3 offensive linemen are in a slide scheme and the other 2 are in a solid scheme, all in the same play. And as far as advantages and disadvantages, a slide scheme is better at dealing with stunts, but is susceptible to a mistake on the QB's part or the offensive line's part if one of them identifies a blitz incorrectly and leaves free rushes with a clear path to the quarterback. That can be pretty dangerous. Turner prefers solid protections over slide protections. More simple, but he uses both. But he prefers the solid scheme because it's simpler for the offensive line and quarterback so that they will not make mistakes. The quarterback will have a great idea of who the offensive line can and cannot block before the play even begins. But with the solid scheme, an offensive line is more susceptible to stunts, which makes them have to be great communicators and be able to identify potential stunts and who will pick up who. Also in a solid scheme, the running back has to be very aware of where potential blitzers may come from. So the running back has to be a great blocker, and not just physically, but mentally. He has to be aware of where they may come from and be able to attack that. Number 10. Now, questioning why my outfit has changed. I'm doing yard work right now, cutting grass, coming back to record the Air Coryell, and I'm going right back out to cut some grass, and then I'm coming back to edit the Air Coryell. But yeah, number 10, Turner appreciates every yard, no matter how it's gained, which is pretty weird for an Air Coryell Offense implementer, whose general philosophy is to get the ball down the field as much as possible, and as quickly as possible. They generally care more about the highest yard per play rather than completion percentage. But Scott Turner appreciates any way of moving the ball and doesn't mind taking it slow to open the big play rather than just looking for the big play constantly and forcing it off the jump. And a lot of teams in general, not even talking about Air Coryell offense using teams, but just in general, usually feel that gaining 6 yards on a run play is worthy of celebration, but a 6-yard pass play on a check down, for example, is somewhat disappointing. Scott Turner doesn't feel that way. He feels that those yards are equal no matter how gained. Plus, he looks at the bigger picture. Turner knows that those short yardage gains help set up big plays later on down the line, or even as soon as the very next play. Chess, not checkers. Number 11, something really big for us, who have had to deal with the mundane, simple, boring, and worst of all, predictable goal line strategy of Jake Gruden and Bill Callahan, is that Scott Turner loves to get creative in goal line situations, along with red zone situations, which I'm going to talk about later with some illustrations. But no more just simply run the ball with a fullback like we did with Ryan Anderson and Adrian Peterson, with Ryan Anderson leading the way, or the occasional fade route to the corner of the end zone that was highly unsuccessful. Scott Turner is willing to do anything, including play action at the goal line, which worked one goal line play against the Saints, and then the very next play he did something else different, and even though it didn't work out because of Kyle Allen's inaccuracy, it was a good play call. It was a creative and aggressive play call, and I sincerely believe Haskins would have converted that 2-point conversion. But what I appreciate most is that he's not predictable. And a common theme throughout this video is that being unpredictable isn't only great for the obvious reason of defenses not being able to focus on stopping what we're doing, but on top of that, defenses are forced to play very simple, disciplined, on their toes, 24/7, stressed type of defense. They can't bring in the personnel and call the right play to stop the run because there's a great chance that we will run play action or just straight up pass the ball. And even if it is a run play, it may be a design QB run or a jet sweep from a wide receiver, or all kinds of unconventional run plays in goal line situations. A defense has to play the very most honest defense, which keeps them balanced but not exceptionally prepared to stop anything we throw at them. They're always in neutral. Number 12, Scott Turner's play calling is great. While the Panthers lost the time of possession battle 3 out of 4 games Scott Turner stepped in as the offensive coordinator, it was not Turner's fault at all. More than 2/3 of Scott Turner's called offensive possessions lasted 6 plays or more, which is great, especially since the defense could pretty much bet on getting at least a decent rest in between possessions. Arrested defense is a deadly one, and Scott Turner's play calling allowed the Panthers defense to rest often. The Panthers' run defense and Kyle Allen's lack of necessary skill are by far the leading factors as to why the Panthers were somehow losing time of possession battles with Turner's genius. It's really sad. Number 13, Scott Turner loves his deep shots. I mean, all Air Coryell Offense users do, but Scott Turner is definitely the same. Even with Kyle Allen and Will Grier, and neither of them have the arm strength even in the same realm as Haskins, and our offensive line should potentially be better than theirs, and our receivers will definitely be better than theirs. DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel are pretty underrated, but they are definitely not Terry McLaurin, AGG, and Steven Sims. So imagine how many deep shots we will take with a much stronger arm QB, a potentially better O-line, and a definitely better receiving corps. He had Will Grier throwing 11 deep passes in one game against the Colts. He's going to have Haskins slanging, especially out of play action. And number 14, the last philosophy. As far as wide receiver, running back, and offensive line competition goes, Scott Turner and Ron Rivera are on the same page with how everybody has to earn their role. Veterans literally have zero priority over the young guys. It's literally like an 80-man job interview right now. So even though Dontrell Inman is a 7-year veteran, AGG has the exact same chance of winning that starting spot opposite of Terry McLaurin. And I love that. Heavy competition, and the best man starts and plays the most. There will be no veterans starting just simply because they are more experienced. Same with the running back group. Adrian Peterson probably won't have as big of an impact as people think. Not unless Antonio Gibson and Bryce Love aren't who we thought they were. Which would not only be tragic depth-wise, but also because they are far better suited to run the offense Scott Turner wants to run. So if you loved a lot of the traits and philosophies our offense will have that I've talked about so far in this video, then you will be very disappointed in what we will actually look like in real life if Adrian Peterson is our premier running back. You might as well just kiss the majority of things that I've talked about in this video goodbye. We won't be able to do most of them with Adrian Peterson. He's a great running back, easy Hall of Famer, but he's not versatile enough. And so if Bryce Love and Antonio Gibson, who fit way better in Scott Turner's offense, aren't able to earn a great percentage of the reps, then we have a serious problem on our hands anyway. Basically, all I'm saying is if Adrian Peterson is getting the majority of carries, just know that Scott Turner had no choice in the matter, and Love and Gibson performed poorly in training camp and practices. I know one big thing Gibson definitely needs to work on already is pass protection. And until he's able to protect well, don't expect him to be at the top of the depth chart. And as far as offensive line, Sadiq Charles has just as great of a chance to start at left tackle week 1 as anybody else, but it's completely up to him to go out there and earn it. But nothing will be handed out to anybody on this team, and Scott Turner has amplified those statements previously made by Ron Rivera. Everybody has to earn their starting spot, their reps, their snaps, their targets, their carries, all of that. Now let's move on to some specific plays that I can show y'all and break down. Now, Scott Turner likes to use 2 different sets of formations in general, but loves to complicate those 2 base formations as much as possible. Like he said, quote, 2 different sets of formations, then we have variations of those formations where we can move back around where they're really the same formation, but one guy might just be a little bit different. We got a lot. We can basically put guys wherever we need to try to give ourselves an advantage, unquote. And speaking of variations, run game wise, Scott Turner has shown in his 4 games as offensive coordinator for the Panthers that he will run a lot of different plays with different looks and motions in the same formation or something very similar. Turner also likes to use several run schemes. Turner switches between both zone and gap schemes. It depends on who the opponent is, which is a big bonus for us. He's not stubborn and uses this cookie cutter scheme no matter what the opponent is. He does his homework for every matchup and creates a scheme specifically for that opponent, specifically for that week. But at the end of the day, breaking down Turner's run game to its simplest form, he likes the zone run with the jet sweep action attached the most. And before we really dive into everything, shouts out to Mark Bullock of The Athletic for a lot of this information and a lot of these illustrations. First of all, I use a lot of his pictures throughout this video, and after watching my own film on Scott Turner's offense with the 4 games he played for the Panthers, I agree with a lot of the points Mark Bullock made in his article. And his illustrations perfectly encompass a few points I'm trying to make in this video. So shouts out to him. But for example, here's a set of plays all ran out of his base 21 personnel in I formation. having 2 running backs and 1 tight end. The X receiver is out wide at the top of the screen on the right side of the offense. The tight end is to the left, more than likely Logan Thomas in our case. And the wide receiver is lined up tight to the left of the formation, more than likely AGG in our case. And then the fullback, probably our best blocking back, or somebody like Thaddeus Moss, who can be very effective at both tight end and fullback, like Chris Cooley, motions to the right side of the offense as another tight end. And then after that, the wide receiver goes in motion, running him to the right and then back to the left. The purpose of this is to get the 2 inside linebackers to shift towards the right side of the offense, and they are also concerned about the right side of the offense because of the fullback moving up there as a blocker. And the edge rushing linebacker on the left side of the offense is tasked with covering the wide receiver who is returning to his side, just in case the wide receiver is given the ball. And then once they hike the ball, the quarterback fakes the jet sweep to the wide receiver and then hands the ball off to the running back in the backfield as he runs a wide zone. The running back takes the carry to the right side, but with the 2 inside linebackers going that direction and the other linebacker being focused on the wide receiver, the running back has a great opportunity for a cutback lane to the left side of the offensive line, which results in a big hole and a big gain. And then later on in that same game, Turner brought back a similar look. But this time around, the receiver switched sides. So like earlier, the fullback motions to become a tight end, but he goes to the left side of the O-line, this time to become a second tight end. And like last time, the wide receiver goes in motion and then he turns around and goes back to the side he started on. This caused the blue circle linebacker to move over towards where the wide receiver is initially motioning towards. The linebacker started on the outside of the right side tight end, but now because of the first half of the wide receiver's motion, the linebacker is shifted inside the tight end. And now the tight end has a much easier task of working up to block that linebacker. And now this time around, with a very similar look, just kind of flipped, the ball is actually given to the wide receiver on the jet sweep instead of giving the ball to the running back in the backfield like he did last time. With the fullback turned tight end on the right side of the O-line working up to the second level to block a defender, the wide receiver being given the ball not only has to beat a cornerback one-on-one on the outside. And this is just one prime example of how Turner will show one formation and run 2 different plays with the exact same motions and personnel, always leaving defenses guessing and on their toes. Now, even though Turner does use zone runs a lot, with jet sweep motions and actions to create favorable blocking angles, he is also willing to step outside of his zone runs like I mentioned earlier. He also likes to use crack toss schemes, also known as the pin and pull, to get his running backs favorable lanes and matchups on the perimeter. This scheme is easily identifiable by the 2 receivers stacked close on the side. In this case, they are both stacked close to the left side of the offensive line. One of the receivers is out of this picture view, but the other receiver, number 13, who you can't see, is close to the receiver, number 12. Their jobs are to block down and pin the defensive end inside to allow the tackle, number 65, to pull out to the edge and then become a lead blocker for the running back as he receives a toss. The running back, of course, is number 22, Christian McCaffrey. Then receiver number 12 ends up doing a good job at pinning the defensive end inside, while the left guard does a good job of reaching across and sealing off the hole left there by the pulling left tackle. The number 13 receiver, who was originally out of the picture, seals off the second level defenders, and so the pulling left tackle only has to block the defensive back. And now the running back has a wide open area to gain a great amount of yards before he is even touched. The core of the defense is all walled off and pinned inside. The left tackle only has to block a defensive back that is much smaller than him, and there's defenders on the right side of the offense that don't even matter, which is another aspect of this play I like. Like going back to the previous picture, those 2 guys all the way to the right don't even matter. They don't need to be blocked. It would be nice if the quarterback could safely, and big emphasis on safely, at least get in the way of the guy further down the screen, and the tight end go and get the guy furthest right. But these steps are not necessary for the running back to get a great chunk of yards, so that tight end and the quarterback don't even have to really do anything this play for this play to be successful. And anybody that knows anything about our offense from previous years, they know that our red zone efficiency has been terrible, atrocious, sad, tragic.
We have been hoodwinked, bamboozled, led astray, run amok,
yucky, horrible, ugly. All of the above. As a matter of fact, we ranked 27th in the league last year, probably even worse than that the year before. But luckily for us, Turner gets even more creative with his runs once he gets to the red zone. The exact opposite of what we've been dealing with. Here in the red zone, Turner ran a trap run scheme which caught several teams off guard and resulted in great gains and even points. Like here, for example, in the trap run scheme, the offense chooses one defender to isolate for the trap. It's usually the 3-tech defensive tackle because they are usually the best defensive tackle, especially at getting penetration and disrupting plays. The right guard and the right tackle on the strong side of the offensive line, the right side on this play here, are supposed to fake a double team on that 3-tech DT and then immediately go and block second level defenders. And the purpose of this, which is really funny to me, is to let the defensive tackle think he is won or is unblocked as he works his way to the backfield and then suddenly hit him with a big blindside hit from the pulling left guard. And if you watched my 4-3 defense breakdown and the Jack Del Rio and Ron Rivera defenses breakdown video that I released months ago, you'll remember this exact same scheme, this exact same picture too, that I broke down in that video with this illustration. Everything comes full circle. And when I made that 4-3 video and devoted a few minutes to types of plays and schemes offenses may run against us, I was looking at it from a defensive point of view. I didn't even know that our recently hired offensive coordinator and Scott Turner would actually be running this scheme against other defenses. And I'm very happy knowing that we will run plays like this trap scheme to abuse the different weaknesses in any given defense. But back to the play. In this exact play ran against the Falcons in the red zone, the isolated, focused on defensive tackle does what many of them do when this trap play is ran the right way. He loses balance and starts to fall forward after he applies so much energy and strength to attack forward, but isn't met with any resistance at all. And then, to make matters worse, here comes a 300-pound guard to not only catch him off guard, but to hit him from his blind side as hard as he can. Big hit. Now that defensive tackle is completely out of the play, usually on the ground, and the right guard and right tackle are up on the second level blocking the linebackers and DBs. And the tight end on the right side of the offensive line, you can't see him in this picture, but he has a one-on-one assignment of blocking the edge rusher. And I would normally say the tight end would have to be a great blocking tight end to handle this responsibility. But that edge rusher, unless he's just a flash, won't really even have a chance to disrupt this play since it's being ran to the left side and very quickly. And like you can see in this picture, the edge rusher has no chance of affecting this play like I was just talking about. And the running back is already gone. And with the center and left tackle blocking their assignments well, it's like they parted the Red Sea for the running back. And the only reason this didn't result in a touchdown this play is because the safety made a great play, a great open field tackle on the running back, and brought him down on the 1-yard line, which is still a win for the offense. It seems like more times than not, this may result in a touchdown, especially for us. Like if Bryce Love is able to be his old self, him being faster than Christian McCaffrey could have been the difference between this play finishing at the 1-yard line or becoming a touchdown. And the same with Antonio Gibson. He is also faster than Christian McCaffrey. CMC ran a 4.49 and Antonio Gibson ran a 4.39. That's a huge difference in speed. And like literally, if this were Antonio Gibson or Bryce Love here instead of CMC on this play, it would have very likely have been a touchdown, which gives us a lot of optimism. Now, I'm not guaranteeing that Antonio Gibson and Bryce Love will be better than Christian McCaffrey overall, because then that would just be silly. But they are both without a doubt faster, especially if Bryce Love is just as fast as he was pre-injury. And the great thing about Scott Turner's offense and plays is that there are plays like this where you don't even have to be a great overall running back as far as vision, patience, IQ, blocking, receiving skills, all of which and more that CMC possesses. But at the very worst, you can simply just be lightning fast, like on this specific type of play design, and be able to put up 6 points on the board just because the scheme is so well designed, utilized, and executed. Scott Turner looks to be so much of a creative and smart offensive coordinator that we can have a deadly, or at the very least consistent, running game even if Antonio Gibson and Bryce Love aren't ready to be premier backs in this league early on, or even ever at all. But that's the worst case scenario. I believe those two will eventually become the best running back duo in the NFL, but we don't even need that from them yet because Scott Turner's play calling and scheme design is just so great. But that's just me digressing. Moving on. Now, with any offense that has a great running game, it sets up a great passing game. You gotta crawl before you walk, you gotta walk before you run, and you gotta run before you pass. And with football, a great run game is the catalyst for a powerful passing attack. And luckily for us, Scott Turner not only knew this, but he also utilized this strategy and did it very well and smoothly. And not only was he able to transition from run to pass very well, but was also able to transition from pass to run very well. Which sounds simple when you say it aloud, but it's far more difficult in practicality and actual application on game days. Turner, in our case, uses a lot of pass concepts and schemes that require a believable run game to make it effective. The run game threat has to be there. Turner loves his play action passes. He loves his bootleg schemes, which allows the quarterback to move and only have to read half of the field. He loves to run drop back play action passes to get the linebackers to move up in an effort to stop the fake run play and then attack the middle of the field. And even more. But most notably, he was able to utilize all of these schemes and concepts with smooth, sequential play calling that perfectly encompasses the saying, "This is chess, not checkers." Each play he calls is a chess move to set up another sequence of plays. And with this aggressive chess match, he gets very creative with his formations, concepts, motions, and overall personnel groups. Again, shouts out to Mark Bullock of The Athletic for these illustrations. But in this game against the Falcons, Scott Turner starts with a fairly standard set, with two receivers stacked tight to the left side of the O-line, and another receiver, Curtis Samuel, who can play both wide receiver and running back, just like our Antonio Gibson, aligned close to the tight end on the right side of the O-line. And then CMC, who can play both receiver and running back, maybe Bryce Love in our case, shifts all the way out wide left, and the receiver on the right side of the O-line moves to the backfield as the new running back behind the quarterback. Now, because of this shift, the defense is on its toes trying to figure out how to defend a running back out wide and a receiver in the backfield. There's so many mismatches presented. Like, should a linebacker still be responsible for CMC and go out there and cover him where he'll be at a huge disadvantage? Or do they shift the entire defense down that way to account for CMC now being out wide? Should the cornerback originally responsible for covering the receiver, who is now in the backfield, come down and help in run support, which is not what corners want to do or are built to do? Or do you just leave everybody where they are and hope the linebackers can cover the receiver in the backfield if he goes out on a route? And also, if you don't adjust the defense, the corner now responsible for CMC is out one-on-one against a top running back in his league. And if CMC is given a quick pass like a screen or a slant or a drag or a comeback route, do you trust that corner who has to run through all of these scenarios and more in his head within a few seconds in between after all of the motions take place and when the ball is snapped? And even crazier, the running back out wide then motions back across the formation on a jet sweep fake. And then the defense decides to shift towards the running back, running across the formation, and now they are out of position to stop the real play. The picture on the left, the crack toss scheme to the left side. And even crazier, Turner never revisited this look in this game. So now the Falcons are mentally on their toes for the rest of this game out of fear that this play may be called again, which Turner never did in this game. But then against the Seahawks, he brought this concept right back out again. Another game, another opponent, same play, but with some tweaks and some adjustments. This time around, Turner had his offense in a 12 personnel with one running back and two tight ends and two wide receivers. When they left the huddle, both of the tight ends were aligned to the right side of the O-line with the receiver lined up tight outside of them. And then the wide receiver out wide to the left side, the side of the O-line that doesn't have any tight ends aligned, moves to a tighter alignment, much closer to the left tackle. And then, like against the Falcons, Curtis Samuel, our version of Antonio Gibson or Steven Sims or J.D. McKissick, then motions to where the running back was, and then the running back, CMC, our version of Bryce Love, maybe J.D. McKissick, motions out to be the furthest player to the left side of the O-line. And to adjust to this look, the Seahawks send a linebacker outside over the receiver aligned tightly to the left side of the O-line, and now the outside corner moves over CMC. And now instead of the crack toss play we saw last time, Turner calls for the Panthers to run a fake run zone to the left with Curtis Samuel, the receiver lined up in the backfield. And they actually hand the ball off to CMC, who is motioning across to the right side of the O-line on a jet sweep. And this jet sweep with CMC shows why the adjustment to have two mobile tight ends to the right side of the formation is so important. Because now CMC has two big bodies that will work up and create a hallway for him to run through. And as long as the tight ends are mobile enough to climb to the second level in time, their size advantage over the defensive back should almost certainly result in great blocks. And even beyond the confusion amongst the defense is super spread out. The defenders out on the right are getting hemmed up by the two tight ends. The core of the defense is walled off by the right side of the offensive line. And the defenders out to the left are too busy being worried about Curtis Samuel from out of the backfield. Now, like the play from 2 plays ago, the running back, CMC in this case, and potentially Bryce Love or Steven Sims or Antonio Gibson, only have to be fast. Doesn't even have to have great vision. Doesn't have to have great patience. Doesn't have to be able to run people over. Doesn't even have to be able to juke people out of their socks. I'm sure that all of those traits that make up a great running back would help, But on plays designed and executed so well like this one, the running back only has to be fast, which something the Burgundy and Gold has at the very least as a worst case scenario. So we can run plays like this tomorrow if we wanted to, even if Antonio Gibson and Bryce Love aren't great overall polished running backs yet. And now here's how Scott Turner smoothly transitions from the run to the pass. Again, in the 12 personnel with a similar formation and set of motions, of course with Curtis Samuel replacing CMC in the backfield, and CMC goes out wide to the left of the offensive line. And now hilariously, the Seahawks have had enough of being on their toes and being fearful of all of the crazy stuff Scott Turner has been calling all game. They just straight up decided, we're going to stick with our game plan and you just going to have to kill us because we are too stubborn, and we'd rather that than you kill us for overcompensating and over-adjusting like you did earlier. Mind games. Chess, not checkers. So now, as CMC starts to motion over the jet sweep, the Seahawks defenders focus on the jet sweep handoff CMC could end up getting. But on this play, Scott Turner tells the offense to not hand the ball off to Curtis Samuel or Christian McCaffrey, and instead Turner calls for a screen pass to Curtis Samuel out of the backfield. And the poor Seahawks, because they didn't have any film on this. Remember when Scott Turner ran a similar look against the Falcons, there was no passing threat, only running. And then earlier in this game, they ran a different type of run out of this look. And then now, they're running a pass play out of this look. And now with the Seahawks focused on the CMC jet sweep, because that's what happened the last time the Panthers showed this look and concept in this game. And with the defenders dropping back in coverage after discovering this is a pass play while panicking and simply just backpedaling because of the confusion as to where the ball may even be thrown and where the eligible receivers are even at, the defense has now lost track of Curtis Samuel. And now he has plenty of space to run through, and of course he ends up getting a great chunk of yards. And this is a great example of how the run, especially some creative run concepts and some strategic play calling in a sequence as a combination, can open up the passing game. The defense doesn't know whether a play is run or pass until it's way too late. Also, this is a great example of what Scott Turner can do with very versatile players like Curtis Samuel and Christian McCaffrey. We have a group of guys that can be utilized the same way, like Bryce Love, Antonio Gibson, Steven Sims, J.D. McKissick, and don't forget Isaiah Wright, the undrafted free agent. So Turner can just be as creative, if not more, with this group of versatile and freakishly athletic players. But Turner also utilizes RPO to keep defenses on their toes by keeping his offense ambiguous. On this play, there's a bunch wide receiver set to the right with a bubble screen, and the running back works an inside zone to the left. This is a pretty common RPO play in this league too. Simple but deadly. The quarterback is tasked with reading the defense. The defense is forced to choose between committing an extra defender to the bubble screen on the right side of the O-line and be undermanned for the run, or committing to the run and leaving the bubble screen open. Whichever poison the defense chooses, it's up to the quarterback to recognize this and attack the biggest weakness. And like I've shown in these previous sets of examples, screen passes and RPOs are great ways to transition from the run to the pass without the defense knowing which one is coming, or even if you're transitioning or not. And because Turner wants to be as mysterious as possible, he uses both of them. And on top of all of that, Turner's knack for taking the extra mile to complicate everything and get creative with utilizing shifts, motions, strange personnel, weird formations, and sequential play calling forces defenses to always be on their toes and fear almost every possibility on every play. Defenses will rarely know what we are doing before we hike the ball. And not only will that pave the way for our offense to be electric just simply because defenses may often guess wrong, but also having a defense always on its toes, not being able to focus on stopping one thing, and always in a balanced neutral defense is easier to attack because they are not able to exhaust resources to stop the one thing an offense is trying to do on any given play, like I've said several times in this video. With Scott Turner, we will have defenses physically and mentally exhausted with them having to be ready for any and everything all of the time. And now I want to break down exactly how Scott Turner loves to create mismatches in the passing game. First of all, Scott Turner still loves his shifts and motions, of course. Expect to see a lot of that. And remember, these motions are not only used to throw a defense off and confuse them, but it also allows the quarterback to know if the defense is in zone or man coverage, like I broke down in the first half of the Air Coryell Offense video released a few weeks ago. And on this play, Turner uses these shifts to confuse the opposing defense and create favorable matchups in the passing game, just like he did for the run game. Also, if he uses motions in both the run and pass game, motions don't signal our offense is running the ball or passing the ball. They have no idea because we're always doing motions almost all of the time anyway. On this play here specifically, the Panthers lined up in a bunch set to the right of the O-line with 3 receivers, and there's a single receiver isolated to the left. And before the snap, the running back CMC, or in our case Bryce Love or Antonio Gibson or JD McKissick, shifts out wide to the left side of the O-line. And the receiver Curtis Samuel, or in our case Steven Sims or JD McKissick, whoever, shifts to the backfield and becomes the new running back. And within the couple of seconds between this shift taking place and the ball getting hyped, the defense has to figure out how to react to a running back lining up out wide as a receiver and a receiver lining up in the backfield as a running back. There's multiple threats coming from this, like I explained earlier, where no matter what the defense chooses, they will always be at some type of disadvantage and they will always choose wrong to some degree. The Seahawks don't make any big adjustments, and the one adjustment they did make is the outside corner widening from the receiver lined up tight on the left side of the O-line to move into CMC, who is now out wide, which is a strong indicator that they are in zone coverage, which gives the quarterback easier reads and allows him to know which receiver will likely be open before the ball is even snapped. The defense has to always be afraid of the possibility of a run because of how similar this look is to the plays that Turner decided to run the ball on, just like I showed y'all earlier. So they can't just drop everybody back in coverage in preparation for 5 players being receivers and all running different routes around the field, because there's a strong chance that we may run the ball out of this exact formation, motion, shift, personnel grouping, and everything. But on this specific play, the quarterback chooses to stick with the original call, which is a popular mesh concept that more and more teams are starting to use around this league. And this mesh concept is especially effective with the shift used by Turner because of the defenses in man coverage. The running back CMC, or in our case Bryce Love, more than likely Antonio Gibson, will likely run right past any linebacker or safety on the shallow cross. And over there with the receiver in the backfield, Curtis Samuel, he could easily take advantage of a mismatch against a linebacker or safety while running his wheel route out of the backfield. And like I mentioned earlier, pre-snap motions also help the quarterback know whether or not the defense is in man or zone coverage. On this play against the Falcons, Turner has 2 receivers stacked to the left side of the O-line, and he has a receiver and a tight end stacked to the right side of the O-line. And before the snap, the quarterback signals the receiver to his right to go in motion. He runs behind and past the quarterback and towards the flat on the left side of the O-line. And now the quarterback watches to see what the cornerback who was originally assigned to that player does. If he follows the receiver, it's man coverage. If he doesn't follow the receiver, it's more than likely zone coverage. On this play, the corner follows the receiver, so this is very likely man coverage. And after recognizing that, the quarterback can now work with his best mismatches. The right side of the field, where there are really only 1 linebacker and 1 safety close enough to cover anybody on that right side. Turner has called a combination of an out route by the tight end and a choice route by the running back. And since the quarterback can safely assume that the linebacker and safety being noted are in man coverage, only one has to cover the tight end and the other will have to cover the running back. And after the snap, the quarterback is able to confirm the coverages, and he knows that he has his running back on a choice route against a linebacker, which is a strong advantage for the running back one-on-one against the linebacker. And with the choice route, it says it in the name, the running back has the choice to take his route inside or break outside or just sit his route down. It all depends on the coverage. And the quarterback has to watch and wait for the running back to make his move before he can throw the ball. And on top of all of that, the pre-snap motions cause even deeper issues for the defense. By changing the look from a 2x2 to a 3x1 right before the ball is snapped, the defense has to consider what their coverage call is and if they are able to account for 3 receivers on one side of the field. Now, most defensive schemes have automatic coverage checks built into their plays. Like for example, a quarters coverage call could change to a cover 3 or vice versa depending on the formation. But even with these coverage checks ready in the defense's back pocket any given play, changing the coverage at a moment's notice is still very difficult, which can catch defenders all out of place if everybody in coverage isn't on the same page and communicating. And even on top of all of that, if the offense knows the opposing defense's coverage checks and tendencies to change coverages, Then the offense could take advantage of this by staying one step ahead and using this pre-snap motions to force the defense into a coverage check and change that the offense prefers, or at least knows they will switch to, and take advantage of that. Again, it's chess, not checkers, staying one step ahead at all times. And now I want to talk about how Turner will use multiple formations and will line up almost any player, any positions on the field, not only to generate favorable matchups, but to also hide his true intentions so that he can create a deadly passing attack. With defenses so worried about all of the different looks and motions that Turner can throw at him, Turner can actually keep his passing offense very simple for the quarterback, running a lot of the same concepts and plays disguised by different starting looks and formations. And this forward verticals concept is a great way to dive into that. It's amazing how complicated this offense is for defenses to understand, adjust to, and defend, but on the other side, how simple it is for the quarterback to operate. But on to this specific example. Forward verticals is literally 4 receivers running vertically down the field. In the most simple and basic form of this concept, the 4 receivers are all split out wide, 2 outside receivers run down the sideline, and 2 inside receivers run up the seam. But on this play, they're running 4 verts out of Turner's 12 personnel, consisting of 1 running back and 2 tight ends, as usual. The tight ends are both aligned to the core of the formation on the left side of the offensive line, and with them both running vertical routes, these tight ends must both be great receiving tight ends for this play to even make sense. So that's important. And the 2 receivers are both lined up to the right of the offensive line. This isn't a typical looking for a vert set, and that is on purpose and by design. The 2 tight ends are both on the left side and aligned closely to the O-line in order to make it look like a potential running play. And to make it even worse for the defense, Turner has the quarterback fake a handoff to the running back on this play action play. So now the defense is shifting up towards the line of scrimmage because of the very real run threat. And as that is happening, the 2 tight ends widen with the outside tight end running down the sideline and the inside tight end running down the seam. And now the quarterback has an easy read. If there's only one single deep safety, work the seams inside. If there are 2 deep safeties, then work the outside routes. Or if the defense is in man coverage, throw to the best matchup. Just read the field. And that was just one of many ways to run the 4 verticals. Just to prove my point about how Turner makes things very complicated for opposing defenses and at the same time makes things very simple for his quarterback, here's another example of 4 verts, but out of a completely different look. On this specific play, Turner has his offense in a trip set with 3 wide receivers lined up on the right side of the O-line and then 1 isolated receiver out wide on the left side. In this formation, the inside receiver runs a vertical route across the middle of the field to end up running his vert on the left side instead of the right side where he starts out at, so that the field is still evenly split up amongst the receivers, even though there are 3 on one side and 1 on the other to start the play. This is how the play is still 4 verts with appropriate spacing for every receiver to have a chance of getting open. And now on this specific play, because Turner is expecting the Colts to play cover 3, he makes an adjustment and decides to send the isolated receiver on the left side of the O-line on an out route to occupy the deep corner of the field instead of the receiver just running a normal vert route down the sideline. Turner guessed correctly. The Colts ran cover 3, but kind of in a weird way. The free safety takes the flat on the left side of the O-line at the top of the screen, and the outside corner on the same side is covering the receiver running the out route, which puts the defense in an ugly situation. There's only 1 safety in the deep middle of the field, with the tight end lined up tight on the right side of the O-line running a deep over to the safety's right, and the slot receiver working up the seam to the safety's left. And this safety is responsible for covering both routes somehow. The Colts adjust by having a linebacker drop back to cover the tight end running the over route, but that linebacker is still at a big disadvantage. And Scott Turner has even more formations that he may run the 4 verts out of. Just another example out of the many more that he has. And on this play, he has his number 1 receiver, DJ Moore, or in our case, Terry McLaurin, or maybe Antonio Gibson just for this specific play, in the slot to the left side of the O-line before motioning him to the backfield is like an H-back. From there, Turner's offense can choose to run the ball with the corner now moving to the core of the defense while following DJ Moore. And again, corners are not built to stop the run, so that's a mismatch on his own. But instead, Turner goes with the 4 verts, with DJ Moore now in the backfield running a switch release with the tight end in front of him slightly to the left. With the switch route combo, DJ Moore, who is more to the right than the tight end is, runs out to the left, and the tight end who is more to the left runs to the right. This could potentially confuse defenses with their assignments, but at the very least, it could cause traffic for the defenders in coverage with them having to run past each other so closely to go and cover their guys. And they could possibly even run into each other and trip each other up. Also, the receiver in the backfield, DJ Moore, has more space to work with instead of being outside the entire play. He can angle his route to help him run away from the corner on more of a curve rather than just a straight line, with the corner having to work his way outside before he can even turn to run with DJ Moore. And Turner isn't afraid to run 4 verts out of an empty backfield. The running back, CMC, or Antonio Gibson, possibly in our case, motions out of the backfield to stack with the tight end on the outside, which gives the offense another receiver running a route, a 5th one. And in this case, the running back out to the left of the O-line runs a shallow cross underneath to confuse the defense and cause all kinds of traffic for everybody in coverage in that area. So not only does the defense have to account for the typical 4 vertical routes being ran, but it also has to have somebody ready to cover a drag route that is running through all kinds of traffic through the core of the defense. And these are different examples of how Turner runs the 4 verts out of different formations and how it applies to so many of his concepts and plays, not just the 4 vertical play. He can change the look, personnel shift, and motions to confuse defenses and keep them on their toes, but since it's essentially the same play no matter how Turner dresses it up, the offense is still very simple for the quarterback with the exact opposite for the defense. And that could go on for hours and hours about all of the different kinds of plays Scott Turner incorporates in his offense beyond just the very few running and passing concepts I've shown y'all in this video. But instead of trying to break down his entire playbook, I just wanted to get the point across of how he is the biggest headache for defenses. But at the same time, the offense is very simple for the quarterback to understand and operate. And it is also built to get the most out of the players who are the best athletes, the biggest playmakers, and the most versatile. Athletic and versatile players with unlimited potential like Terry McLaurin, Antonio Gibson, Bryce Love, JD McKissick, Steven Sims, and maybe even some guys that are slipping my mind are going to love this offense the best. This system is built to allow them to do everything they possibly can do and not limit them to traditional roles and boring and predictable concepts. And again, most helpful for a young quarterback in Dwayne Haskins, who is essentially still in his rookie season, to be completely honest. This offense is built to be very easy to understand, but at the same time, allow him to get the most out of his mobility and top 10 arm talent potential. This offense is very simple, but it doesn't hold him back and suppress his talents in any way like that West Coast offense would. And before we move on, if you want more passing game illustrations, examples, and breakdowns, go watch the Air Coryell Offense video part 1, where I analyze some passing plays and concepts Scott Turner will run, but I didn't cover in this specific video. So there's more plays for you to check out if you haven't seen part 1 of the Air Coryell Offense breakdown. Now on to the final stage of this video, how current players fit in Scott Turner's offense. Now, as a disclaimer, with a different personnel than he had in Carolina, his scheme is due to have some changes. There may be a lot more added. There may be some taken out that I've discussed. Also, this is his first time going into a full offseason as a full-time offensive coordinator. So he has a lot of time to prepare new concepts, schemes, plays, formations, and all kinds of things that he didn't have the time and freedom of doing last season with the Panthers, where he was only a full-blown offensive coordinator for the last 4 games. So this offense, especially with a more mobile and stronger arm quarterback, and Terry McLaurin being a better receiver than anybody Carolina had last year, has even more potential for explosion, creativity, strange looks, and potential for confusing defenses, giving them headaches and keeping them on their toes and exhausted every week, in my honest opinion. But again, this last part of the video is me giving a very educated guess as to how these players will be used and depended on based on how Scott Turner used his players last year. Starting with Haskins, of course the first player we have to spotlight is the future of this franchise, Dwayne Haskins. First of all, Haskins' biggest obstacle will be learning the new terminologies of this new offensive system. Of course he has to learn new formation, plays, audibles, and things like that, but the main thing he has to learn first is the terminologies. And he may already know them by now because Scott Turner was hired back in early January, so Haskins has had plenty of time to learn the terminologies virtually and now in practices since training camp has started. With routes being numbers instead of code words or names, I'm expecting that Haskins has at least had this part down pat already. But learning all of the routes as numbers is very advantageous for him because it's easier for him to visualize a play call because the call tells every receiver which route to run instead of using a code word for the overall concept. This also means that if during the middle of the game, Redskins want to make a slight adjustment to a previously used concept, they can simply just change one number. Using our play from the first Air Coryell Offense video as an example, if we wanted to change the X receiver's route from a comeback to a deep out, the call changes from 5-5 F post swing to 7-5 F post swing. In the West Coast system, that would require a new tag at the end of the call to something like Zebra Quick Seam Puma X Bench. I mean, it sounds like they're speaking of hieroglyphics. It's way more complicated. So if Haskins has the terminologies down, and if he knows as much of the playbook as Ron Rivera said he does, then we are cooking with grease around here. Also, Turner said in the interview that he will not only adapt his game plan, scheme, and play calling every week to expose opponent defense's biggest weaknesses, but he will also adapt his game plan throughout a game to best suit how Dwayne Haskins is currently playing, and also, of course, to best attack what the opposing defense has been showing throughout this particular game so far. So say like the defense on any given game we may face chooses to dedicate the most of their resources and game plan towards not allowing any deep throws over their heads. Then at some point, maybe after halftime or even sooner than that, Turner will make the executive decision to take what the defense is giving us, make the short throws and hit them with the death by 1,000 cuts method. And eventually, after we are dominating time of possession and moving the ball too easily on them, the opposing defense will be forced to become balanced and even possibly lean towards stopping these short throws. And once they do that, Turner loves to go right back to looking for the big play, the deep passes. Turner is willing to adjust and adapt his game plans and is not stubborn on forcing something to work that never will that game. It may work against one team, but maybe not the next. And that's what we've struggled with the most as fans of the Burgundy and Gold, watching our team never make adjustments while other teams did. For example, being up 17-0 over the Eagles at halftime week 1. And again, not only does he adjust his play calling and schemes during games because of what the defense is doing, but most importantly, to this part of the video talking about Haskins, he is willing to adjust the game plan around what Haskins is doing that day and how he's playing. Like for example, if Haskins is having a bad day and is inaccurate throwing down the field, then Scott Turner will work in some shorter, easier throws temporarily to get Haskins into a rhythm before Turner starts to attack deep again, which is ultimately Scott Turner and every offensive coach's goal who is running the Air Coryell Offense, attacking deep. And at the end of the day, the deep bomb is the main goal of Turner's offense, but he will go to some short throws for Haskins if he's struggling that particular game at that particular time. Also, Scott Turner handles identifying coverages with the quarterback on a game-by-game basis or a defense-by-defense basis. Throughout the week before a game, Turner will help the quarterback understand and be able to identify what coverages the next opponent is running and what they look like, and how to know when they are running them, and even when the defense tries to disguise it, and of course, know how to attack the coverages appropriately. It starts with the safety, of course, but it gets more complicated than that when trying to identify coverages a defense will use any given game. But at least, to the offense's benefit, defenses usually run a small handful of coverages in general. Not even just on a game-to-game basis, but just throughout an entire season. They run a handful of coverages that best suits their personnel and strategy. So you can expect them to run this set of coverages every game. So Turner and Haskins will be able to study their opponents throughout the week before the game and be able to take advantage of them during the game. They shouldn't be surprised by any weird coverages that they didn't see on film throughout the week. And Scott Turner has already stated that the center and quarterback won't necessarily have the power to change plays at the line of scrimmage, but they will be able to adjust protections. And every now and then, Turner will call a two-play situation where Haskins will have certain things he's looking for from the defense, and then he will decide which play to run from that. But for the most part, Turner has the options and answers already built into the offense, such as checkdowns, one-on-one routes, and other favorable matchups. Another thing is, when Haskins is struggling, Turner will strongly encourage Haskins to take it one play at a time and not force things at all. Don't try hard to dig yourself out of a hole. Just learn to trust your guys around you to do their parts and make plays, and just take your time and make the correct play one play at a time, and before you know it, you'll be in a rhythm and back on track, moving the ball and putting up points. And strategy-wise, while the West Coast offense prefers to attack the middle of the field and make throwing the ball as easy as possible for the quarterback, Turner's Air Coryell offense prioritizing attacking the defense at its weakest points, which is on the outside where it's less crowded and has less threats to intercept the pass. Turner prefers not to coddle the quarterback like the West Coast offense does, which is great for a quarterback with a huge arm like Dwayne Haskins. he essentially will be set free to be as great as he wants to be. He won't be baby. The sky's the limit for Haskins in this offense. It's just up to him to step up to the plate. There's no training wheels as far as throws he needs to make, which is a gamble. He's either going to be way worse than if he were in a West Coast offense, or he's going to be way better than if he were in a West Coast offense. And I love that. I'm always going for the highest potential. Plus, Scott Turner worries about where the defense's biggest weaknesses are rather than where can my quarterback make the easiest throws. How effective can this offense be rather than how easy can this offense be? For Turner, when in doubt, take the one-on-one matchup outside. And this is also perfect for Dwayne Haskins because it depends on his arm strength, which he has plenty of, and it also is a simpler read than throwing in the middle of the field. So it's more difficult physically, but way easier mentally, which is literally perfect for a rocket arm rookie. With this philosophy, Turner has to be able to trust Haskins' arm strength, and Haskins has to be able to trust his receivers to win. Now moving on to the tight ends. The tight ends in this offense will have to be dual threat. Scott Turner doesn't put as much emphasis on tight ends being as great as his dad did, but it still will matter a lot. Any given play, a tight end will have to block or be a deadly receiving option, and it can even be both on the same play when tight ends are asked to chip or block a defender for a short amount of time and then run a route. And they can't be the minimal version of a dual threat. They need to be excellent receiving options to be any real threat. They won't just only run shorter routes on the route tree. They will be taxed to run verticals and outs and all kinds of deeper routes. So the tight ends not only have to be great blockers and contribute to the short passing game, but they will also have to contribute to the deep passing game. And as of right now, the only person who even has the potential to do that on this current roster is Logan Thomas. And the very slim chance that Cam Sims is able to add all kinds of muscle and somehow magically learns how to block well in a short amount of time, which usually takes years, which I highly doubt. But the other guys in the tight end room may be good blockers, and they may be pretty decent in the short yardage game, but they are not deadly receiving threats, especially not down the field, even as much as I love Thaddeus Moss. And again, Logan Thomas isn't necessarily a deadly dual threat tight end yet, but with his freakish athleticism that nobody else has in our tight end room, which gives him room to grow, he has the potential to be that. He's very new to the tight end position because he played quarterback all through college and switched to tight end at the NFL level. So he's going to need some time to learn how to be a better receiving option as far as route running, positioning in hands, and everything that makes a great receiver. But again, with his athleticism, if he learns how to play receiver well, he could be that dual threat tight end we've been waiting for forever. Because Jordan Reed and Vernon Davis were great receiving options but couldn't block to save their lives. Jeremy Sprinkle is a good blocker but isn't a dependable receiving option at all and can't separate. And even if he somehow magically learned how to catch over this offseason, he still isn't athletic enough to be a true separator in the passing game. Logan Thomas has the potential to be that dual threat, game-changing, QB's best friend type of tight end that we've been waiting for forever. But don't expect it to be anytime soon, to be completely honest with you. And while I love Thaddeus Moss as a blocker and a red zone threat with his excellent hands that didn't drop a single pass last year in coverage, again, he is not athletic enough to separate consistently and be a mismatch in the passing game, especially deep down the field. Even with much improved route running, he may become a decent passing game option, but he will never be a Jordan Reed in that department, but he will be a great blocker, now that's for sure. May already be our best blocking tight end already. And as a bonus, Thaddeus Moss projects to be a Chris Cooley H-back type of guy where he will be a tight end on some plays and a fullback on others, which can be a huge chess piece for us once he improves his route running. And Scott Turner has literally said, quote, "The tight end is very important to our offense," unquote. So the man himself has emphasized how important a tight end that can do it all will be to this offense to be able to run how Scott Turner envisions it. And we will really need two of them because Scott Turner loves to run 12 personnel with two tight end sets often, like I've shown y'all with the previous pictures we broke down. And just a random detail, Turner said in the interview that when tight ends chip in protection and go out to run a route, expect them to run something that's sort of a check down option, like a flat route or a drag or a shallow route across the formation, or even a hook route. A short route makes sense, first of all, because it's a check down option for Haskins, But also, because after they take the time to chip a defender, more than likely an edge rusher, they are already behind on their route timing in comparison to the other guys running routes because they instantly began running their routes as soon as the ball was hiked, while the tight end in question takes a couple of seconds to block and then run his route afterwards. So he needs to run something short because he won't have time to run anything else anyway. Also, running something short will help disguise the fact that he is even a receiving option for the linebackers and DBs. But still, tight ends will be asked to run deep routes like we saw in the 4 verts concept ran from different plays like I talked about earlier and showed y'all earlier. A vertical route is as deep as a route gets. Not very complicated, but definitely pretty demanding of a tight end's speed and burst. And lastly, as far as the tight end goes, they not only need to be able to block well, but they will also have to be mobile enough to block at the second level quickly and often. They need to be able to reach that second level and move linebackers and corners out of the way. If Logan Thomas and or Thaddeus Moss end up not working out, don't be surprised if we end up drafting one early or paying big money for a great one in free agency. Maybe give Hunter Henry a chance, who's very talented but injury prone. But that's how important this position is and how great they have to be for this offense to operate at its highest capacity. Now the receivers. Terry McLaurin and Antonio Gandy Golden are great outside guys for this offense that has to lean on his receivers to win outside like I just mentioned, which is something Terry and AGG can definitely do. They also need to be good at the deep ball, which includes having the route running savvy and skill to sell that you are not running a deep route to the DB, then having the speed to run past the DB, and then the ability to track the ball while deep down the field so they can adjust their routes, and then have the concentration in hands to actually catch the ball. They both have that skill set and will love how many opportunities they will have to make big plays down the field in this offense. And I'm expecting Steven Sims to eat as a slot receiver in this offense. Teams will be so worried about the other receivers and the running backs and the tight ends. So Steven Sims is going to be open just because defenses won't even have enough resources to cover him on top of everybody else. And with his crazy elusiveness and speed and his vastly improved route running in hands and Haskins' elite zip on the ball to be able to throw into tight spaces as quickly as humanly possible, Steven Sims should be a top slot receiver in this league. And of course we can expect Steven Sims to be more than just a receiver. Which takes me to the versatile players. Steven Sims, Antonio Gibson, and J.D. McKissic are perfect for Scott Turner's creative use of versatility within his offense. As long as they're willing to put in the work, they're going to love this offense. Turner will do whatever it takes to get the ball in the hands of his best playmakers no matter what. Steven Sims is more of a receiver, and I'm expecting him to be the premier slot receiver on his team and one of the best slot receivers in the league at some point. But even though he is a receiver, his yards after catch ability will have Turner giving him all kinds of touches in ways that receivers don't normally get, like jet sweeps, screens, handoffs from the backfield, reverses, and all kinds of stuff. And then guys like Antonio Gibson and J.D. McKissic, who are more so running backs but have a lot of receiving ability potential, will be given opportunities to catch the balls in ways the running backs normally don't. And not even just like a third down back way, but like the receiver way, from the slot and even out wide sometimes. Running several routes from the route tree and not just screens, drags, and wheel routes. I'm talking like they may even sometimes run out routes, go routes, verts, comebacks, choice routes, all of that. Real receiver stuff. And if I were freakishly athletic and versatile like those three guys, this offense would be heaven for me. At the very least, it would be the most fun to play in. And with Turner getting extremely creative with these dilly playmakers, defenses will never know what's coming. And even if they do somehow know what's on the way, which I doubt and will be very rare, it will still be very difficult to even stop it. These three guys in question will be given the ball in space and allowed the freedom to make something shake like they've been doing all of their lives. It's natural to them. They won't be put into a box and forced to be one-dimensional. Teams are going to hate the players because of those three with Scott Turner coaching them up. And also noteworthy, if one of these guys emerges as the clear-cut best player out of the three, that guy will be a potent fantasy football option. Again, Turner will force feed people touches. And if somebody is able to emerge as Turner's favorite, expect that person to be a consistent flex option in fantasy football because they will get a certain amount of touches every game no matter what. Alright, y'all work done for today at least. I gotta go back out tomorrow. But, for example, here's how Turner will give these versatile guys complicated routes out of the backfield. They won't just be running wheel routes and screens. They'll be running some complicated stuff from the backfield. Like on this play against the Packers, Christian McCaffrey is sent on a fake cross against an isolated linebacker while the defense is spread out. which is already a mismatch alone. CMC one-on-one with a linebacker. But then on top of that, he starts running towards the flat, and then he suddenly breaks inside, but then after a few more steps, he runs back towards the flat. The defender is out there on a struggle island trying to cover CMC one-on-one. The defender takes outside leverage first because he sees CMC running towards the flat, and then when CMC starts to break inside, the defender commits inside to prevent CMC from easily winning inside, because people normally don't run 3 different directions within a route, especially not a running back. So he's just assuming once Christian McCaffrey broke inside, that was it. But this commitment to stop the inside move, assuming this was going to be his one and only change of direction, puts him way out of position to stop CMC's break back outside. And as you can see here, the linebacker is in an ugly position. Christian McCaffrey is open and the QB has a good window to throw into for a touchdown. But Kyle Allen folds and throws off his back foot, and the ball hits the ground in front of CMC with no chance of getting caught. But either way, this was a great play design and play call in the red zone. Haskins could definitely make this throw. And with his big arm, even if he threw off his back foot like Kyle Allen, he still may have completed the pass. But this is one of the many complicated wide receiver-like routes turning will have our versatile guys running out of the backfield, and I'm excited. Linebackers are not built to stop this. And running backs will even be lined up as a receiver in empty sets with nobody in the backfield sometimes, which will also complicate things even more for defenses. Now to the running backs, the pure running backs. Bryce Love, Antonio Gibson on occasion, Adrian Peterson, and maybe even a little Peyton Barber are going to have great opportunities to have big runs because of how balanced and unpredictable this offense will be. With teams having to worry about the pass so much, or all of the weird things we will do, these backs will be able to run against 5 or 6 in a box, a lot, rather than 8 like defenses have had against us when we had no passing game last year. And teams could dictate most of their resources towards stopping the run and still not have to worry about a deep ball threat. These guys will also get the ball in the passing game with screens, checkdowns, and other routes best suited for running backs that aren't great route runners. Again, the threat of the deep ball and other routes ran by the likes of Terry, AGG, Steven Sims, and the others will have defenses focusing all of their attention on them most of the time, and then these more pure running back type of backs will have opportunities to get involved in the passing game. Even somebody like Adrian Peterson may be able to get some receptions here and there just because defenses won't have enough players on the field to even worry about both him in the passing game and everybody else. But if anything, the deep ball is possible because of a strong run game, not the other way around. So our running backs have to be able to run the ball well in order for us to even run this offense as well as we plan to. We are dependent on Bryce Love, Antonio Gibson, AD, and the others to get the running game going so we can even attack downfield as often as we expect to. And then lastly, the offensive line. Generally, in this offense, they have to be very mobile. The tackles and guards will all have to pull at times and all kinds of stuff. They will all have to be able to climb to the second level and block linebackers and defensive backs. And with how fast-paced and spread out this offense is, the offensive linemen have to be able to move and have a lot of stamina. Luckily for us, Brandon Sheriff, Sadiq Charles if he starts, and Keith Ishmael if he somehow magically dethrones Chase Roulier are all very mobile. Now Sadiq and Keith both need to improve their strength, but if they can do that, they will be ideal for this offense. Jerron Christian is also mobile, but needs to gain strength in the worst way. But people around the Burgundy and Gold franchise, and even Trent Williams, have been raving about how great Jerron Christian looks this offseason. But hey man, we'll have to see that. I gotta see that to believe that. But this offense also has a place for the strong bully guys that aren't very mobile, like a Wes Martin, kind of a Chase Roulier, Morgan Moses when he's at his best, especially when we want to run some inside zones or switch it up with some power running. And Brandon Sheriff is so great because he can perform well in both play styles. That's why we need to lock him up long term, honestly. But the main thing our offensive line needs to be is healthy and dependable. We need everybody to stay healthy for any of this to even matter. And that's the end of this Air Coryell Offense series. This is part 2. If you haven't, make sure you go check out part 1 where I'm just giving a general synopsis and breakdown of what the Air Coryell Offense is, some of the great ones throughout history, comparing it to the West Coast offense directly, and some of the general plays that everybody who runs the Air Coryell Offense will call and stuff like that, including Scott Turner. And make sure you like this video if you liked it. If you learned anything, please subscribe. If you haven't, definitely hit that bell next to the subscription button so you get a notification every time I schedule a live stream, I start a live stream, or when I release a video like this one. And of course, shouts out to all my sponsors, especially the Pro Bowl sponsors whose names you see scrolling on the screen right now. All of y'all donations and contributions in any way go right back into the stream to increase the stream quality, the video quality, cameras, mic, effects on the screen, all of that type of stuff. Y'all helped me build the PC I'm using to record this very video. So I appreciate all of y'all. And man, I am so happy to finally get this done. Boy, it's been a long few months studying Scott Turner and everything, boy. Just watching straight Panthers film. I watched more Panthers film those last 4 games than I've watched any Burgundy and Gold film these last few months. And I'm finally happy to move on to the film sessions of our rookie draft class and some of the undrafted free agents that I'll be getting to y'all soon. Finally got this off my list, thank goodness, but the content will not stop. I'll catch y'all later. I'm out.